Hey now, Brawlers, it's time for another Board Game Brawl review with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, today we're going to take a look at Mafia de Cuba from Asmodee and Louis Meme Games. I'm probably butchering that, I'll give up now. This is a party game for 6 to 12 players. It's a hit and roll style game, so think something along the lines from the Resistance, but it's very, very different than that. Thematically, it takes place in Cuba back in, the 50s or 60s, and one player in each game is going to be the Godfather, and the rest of the players at the table represent his, I guess for lack of a better word, the equivalent of capos, the leaders of his group, and you walk away from the table, metaphorically speaking, leaving your cigar box behind. The actual box of the game is very integral to the game. You leave your cigar box behind, it's full of diamonds and other signs of loyalty, and the other players are going to pass it around and have their share without hoping to let the Godfather know. Godfather comes back, and it's on. Something's missing, and he's got to find out what. So this is a very interesting and unique game. The best way for me to describe how it works is just to show you. So let me give you a brief overview, then we're going to come back. I'll let you know what I think. Alright, I'm going to give you a brief overview of Mafia de Cuba. This is a competitive party game for 6 to 12 players. The goal of the game is, well, different depending on what role you have in the game. I'm going to get to that, but actually what I want to do first is show you how the game is played, just so you have a better grasp of what's going on before I explain all the different roles. Now, this is the game box itself, which I usually don't have on camera for the overviews, but it is an incredibly essential part of Mafia de Cuba and the actual gameplay. At the start of the game, someone is going to be determined to be the Godfather. Now, it's expected that you're going to play multiple games of Mafia de Cuba in a row because it is a very fast game, so Godfather will pass every game, but you'll need to determine someone for the first game, and that player is actually going to take the entire cigar box. Thematically speaking, as I mentioned in my intro, it represents that you are having a sort of sit down with all the leaders of your organization, and you are stepping away from the table. You are putting a bunch of diamonds that you have into this box for safekeeping, along with some other stuff that you have in there, and then you're stepping away from the table, and then all the other players may try to steal from you. Now, you do have a little bit of setup to do ahead of time, depending on the number of players and what roles you have. Now, see, first, as soon as you open the box, there's some artwork on the inside, and you have these cigars, which are just decoration. And then you're going to lift this up, and inside you're going to have the actual contents in the box. And on the inside flap here, you actually have a little cheat sheet for the game if, while the box is being passed around, someone needs to look up rules really quickly. Now, when you do the setup, you're not actually going to have all of this stuff in here. You're going to set up the game in a very particular way, using certain role tokens and not using other ones, depending on the number of players. And also, if you're experienced players, you can just use whatever tokens you want instead of the ones that are recommended to you. Also in here, there shouldn't be a plastic bag, but these are actually Joker tokens, which I'll explain a little bit more in a minute, but they're basically represent extra chances for the Mafia, for the Godfather to actually get things right in the game. You have a felt pouch, which is going to be pretty important, and you have the diamonds themselves. There are up to 15 diamonds, but at the start of the rounds, the Godfather is going to choose 0 to 5 of those diamonds to take out secretly, which will mean that the other players in the game are not exactly going to know how many diamonds there were supposed to be at the start of the round. So let's say that I'm taking out 3 of the diamonds. Then the next thing that the Godfather is going to do is take the felt pouch and give it to the player on his left. That player is sort of supposed to represent the right-hand man of the Godfather, and has a couple of extra important, or one important decision to make when the box gets passed around. And what do you mean passed around? Well, the game is going to be played in phases. The first phase of the game is the diamond theft. After the setup and after the Godfather decides to take out any gems and passes the felt bag to the next player, the box is going to get passed around from every other person until it gets back all the way around to the Godfather. The person that gets the box is going to do 3 things in order. The first thing they do is they look inside the box secretly. They're all doing this. You do this under the table or just in a way that the other players can't look, or make the other players not look at you while you're doing it. But you look inside the box and secretly look at the contents and keep track of everything that's in there. Count the number of diamonds, count all the tokens that are in there, and know for sure what's in there. The next thing that you do is take something from there. You can take either a character token that's still in the box, or as many diamonds as you want, to a minimum of 1 if there are any diamonds still in the box. Now, if there are no character tokens and there are no diamonds to take, then you take nothing, but you still act as if you're taking something out of the box, just rustle around in there, and you are considered to be a street urchin. We'll get to that. It's another role in the game. I'll explain what that means. Now, a couple of things, however. The first player has this felt pouch. What this represents is that before the first player to the left of the Godfather, before the first player decides to take something and then pass the box along, they may decide to take 1 character token out of the box and put it inside the pouch secretly, stuff it in his pocket, and not worry about it. And by the way, whenever you take anything in the game, you're putting it into your pocket or holding it in your hand or some way, somehow putting it somewhere where somewhere not inappropriate that the other players will not be able to see it or have any indication of what you actually took. But the first player gets to take a token and put it inside the pouch and then stuff it in his pocket, then makes a selection from the box. And this way he or she can have an influence on what tokens are actually going to be available to the other players. But they don't have to do that. They can make believe that and pretend that they're putting something in the pouch and then stuff it in their pocket and be done with it. Finally, the other special rule for when you're passing around the box is that whoever the last player is, that is to say the player to the Godfather's right who's going to be receiving the box last, even if there is stuff still in the box, at least 1 diamond or at least 1 character token, that last player can decide not to take anything and willingly become a street urchin. Although, again, they still must fake it and rustle around in the box as if they're going to take one of those things. Then they're going to pass the box to the Godfather, and then you go into the next phase of the game, which is the investigation phase. This is where thematically the Godfather comes back to the table and is like, hey, wait. Someone stole some stuff out of my box. The Godfather looks inside, determines the contents of the box, and by the way, just remember that these Joker bottles are not supposed to be in here. I'll explain what those are in a minute. But he examines the contents of the box and says, okay, something went horribly awry here, and you guys have stolen from me, and I'm going to get to the bottom of it. And that is what this whole phase of the game is about, is the Godfather going around and accusing the other players of potential thievery. Now, at this point of the game, it's pretty free-form, but what the Godfather is doing is asking questions of all of the other players. He can ask whatever question he wants, but obviously, unlike games like Spyfall, you want to ask very specific questions here. Examples of questions would be, you point to someone and say, okay, you, how many diamonds were in the box when you received it? Or you might say, how many diamonds were in the box before you passed it along? You could ask someone, did you take a character token? You could ask someone, which character token did you take? You can ask any question regarding what you think they may or may not have taken or put into or taken out of the box. You could even ask the person that's to your left, hey, did you take a token out? Which one was it? All these different things you can ask. No one is compelled to tell the truth here, but you're hoping to catch them and trip them up in a lie. So if you ask someone, hey, how many diamonds were in the box when it got to you? And they say, well, there were 7. And then you ask the person before him, how many diamonds were in the box when you passed it along? And that person says, well, there was 9. Then somebody's lying there. And that's a pretty obvious thing. But you want to look for more subtle things that are going to give you hints. The end goal for the Godfather, I'll explain that role first, is to figure out who stole the diamonds, accuse them properly, and tell them to empty out their pockets. And if you can get every diamond back on the table, you will win the game, potentially with at least one other person. Now you can say, okay, empty out your pockets. And if that person does not have your diamonds, if that person has something else, a character token, but anything except for diamonds, you have made a mistake. And if you've made a mistake and you have Joker bottles left, you give them a Joker bottle as a sign of apology, and then you continue on. But if you make a mistake in accusing someone and you have no Joker bottles left, the Godfather is eliminated and that round is over. And do note that with less players, like I think 6 and 7 players, you don't even have Joker bottles, which means it's instant death if the Godfather makes a mistake in accusing people. And now here's where we're going to talk about the other roles that are in the game and what they mean. First off, you have the Loyal Henchmen. I think there's up to 5 Loyal Henchmen potentially, depending on the number of players. The Loyal Henchmen are genuinely loyal to you, and if you win, they win. They want to protect you. They want to give you good clues. They want to make sure that you make good guesses so that you can all win together. And remember, the whole point of this game is that you are choosing your roles. If the Loyal Henchman is in the box, someone can grab him, unless the player to the left of the Godfather decides to take him out of circulation. But otherwise, someone is deciding they are going to be the Loyal Henchman, or they are going to be one of the other roles I'm going to describe. Next, we have the FBI and CIA agents. These are the blue chips, and they both act the... Where's the other one? There it is. They both act in the exact same way. They both have the same type of power, but you may use both of them, or you may only use one of them. What they do is that if they are masquerading as one of the other characters, and they actually want to pretend to be a thief in order to trick the Godfather into accusing them. If the Godfather accuses either the FBI agent or the CIA agent of being a thief and tells them to empty out their pockets, they win alone because they have been improperly accused. They essentially entrapped the Godfather. Next, we're going to talk about the driver. The driver is the green token, and there could be 2 of those. The driver wins if the player to their right wins. It's as simple as that. They are the getaway driver for the player to their right, and they want to do everything in their power to make sure that that character wins. And, of course, since you can say whatever you want during this game, but you don't just show anyone what your role is, which means that they may have to do some guessing in order to even determine how they're going to help that other player win the game. But they must rely on that other person to win. The other 2 major roles there are no tokens for, of course, and that's the thief and the street urchin. The thief wins if the Godfather is eliminated without discovering all of the diamonds. And at that point, any thief that has not been forced to empty out their pockets, whoever has the most diamonds amongst them is going to be the winner of the game. The street urchins, however, will win if the thief wins, whoever that thief happens to be, and even if they have been accused and eliminated from the game, meaning they want to draw accusations to themselves in order that the thief might have an easier time and potentially win because they will win with him or her. Now, the last role that's in the game is kind of tricky to use, and you shouldn't do it unless you're already really experienced with the game, and that is the cleaner. Now, the cleaner replaces one of the loyal henchmen that you would normally play with, according to a chart in the book, and he is loyal to the Godfather and can win with the Godfather, but there's a special thing that happens with the cleaner. When the Godfather is about to accuse someone and force them to empty out their pockets, the cleaner essentially says, "Pow!" and shoots them. And when they shoot that person is, if they're, he doesn't have to use his power, but if he chooses to, he shoots them, and a few things might happen. If that person actually was a thief, the thief empties out their pockets, the Godfather gets the diamonds, and boom, there you go, that's fine. If the person was not a thief, was just one of the normal people like the driver, for instance, then that person gets killed, and they're just out of the game. And in fact, the Godfather does not have to give up one of the Joker bottles in that instance. But for the cleaner, if that character was an agent, either a CIA agent or FBI agent, then the cleaner actually wins alone. But if it was anyone other than an agent, the cleaner will be eliminated together with that other player. And if it's a thief, of course, the Godfather's going to get the diamonds and not have to, and does not have to give a Joker bottle to anyone else. But the cleaner essentially sacrifices themselves to eliminate one of the Godfather's rivals, something like that. So it's a bit of a tricky role to use, but it does make things a little more interesting. And those are all the special roles, and that is essentially Mafia de Cuba. You choose your role as you go along, unless you're stuck as the Godfather for that round. And you are trying to either steal diamonds from the Godfather, protect the Godfather, falsely accuse other people in order to get the Godfather to falsely accuse you, so on and so forth. Lots of things going on in this relatively small and simple game. Let's get to my final thoughts. The presentation of Mafia de Cuba is great. I love the artwork. I love the design of the box. It just has that old school Cuban feel to it. It just looks great. And, sort of on the borderline of gaudy, but just on the more attractive side. But it just comes together really well and gives it a very deep and rich thematic theme. And the very idea of passing around this box is a great idea. And the Cuban cigar like inlay as soon as you open it, and then you open that up more, and there's a cheat sheet there, which is a great efficient idea. But then there's the actual contents of the box, and even the lining of the box, it probably didn't come across very well on in the overview video, has pictures of stuff on it, so it just looks great, and it's thematic, and it ties in thematically to the game elements. This game as a whole, I think more than any of these other types of hidden role party games that I've played, really lends itself to getting into the theme and even playing out the characters in the theme. That can be a very difficult thing in games like Werewolf and The Resistance, where you kind of become detached from the theme to a certain degree, especially since those games can be rethemed and have been rethemed into almost anything. But in Mafia de Cuba, it really feels like, because you're passing around a cigar box and because of the artwork, it couldn't be anything other than this theme, and you can really get into it because of that if you have the right group. But let's talk about the gameplay itself. I really enjoy this game. It's got so many neat elements to it, very subtle things going on in the questions that you ask to people. If I was going to say that there are faults, and I'll just get these out of the way right now. The player count is odd. It's 6 to 12 players, and you do need a lot of players. You need not like the maximum amount, because that can be a bit too chaotic. Somewhere in the middle, so that you can get more than one guest as the Godfather. It does have a steep learning curve, not the fact that it is difficult to learn. You can get this up and running very quickly. The rules are fast and easy to understand, and games are fast as well, but figuring out how to be good and what you should be doing during the course of the game, that's the tough part. You're really not going to have your feet under you until maybe 3 or 4 games in, at which point everyone at the table is going to be like, okay, here's what I should be doing. As the Godfather, there's this delicate balance between asking questions that are going to get you useful information and things that are just going to clutter up your information stream. And it's a pure deduction. It's like, okay, what do I do with this information? He said that he had this many diamonds, but the next guy said that only this many diamonds came over here, so one of them is lying. But if I take this information here and match it up to what he said, because this guy also said there was no tokens in the box, but he lied, and he may be lying and saying that it is, so this can be true, but that can't be true, which means that this must be true. That kind of thing. It probably sounds more I'm making it sound more complicated than it actually is, but there are these interesting little mind games going on. And then for the other players, it's almost as interesting, if not more so, because every role is a little bit different in what on the grill. Everyone is having to lie and having to do some sort of manipulation, because even if you're on the Godfather's side, you need to throw people, you need to throw him off of your scent. You need to get him to be accusing the actual thieves, which can be a tough thing to do. So you need to be honest with the Godfather and not have him suspect you, but at the same time be able to manipulate the Godfather into picking somebody else. If you're the agent, you want the Godfather to pick you, but you can't be too obvious about it. Like, oh yeah, stole 8 gems, pick me. You can't do that. But you can tell little lies. You can lie about the contents of the box before it passes along and hope that someone contradicts you and brings suspicion on you, and hope that the Godfather doesn't catch on that you're being a little bit too obvious. The driver is super interesting, because as the driver, it's like, okay, I don't even know what the guy to my right is. I can kind of judge based on his actions, and then you need to cater your questions to how am I going to protect him and how am I going to help him win the game and give him cover. That is super interesting as well. I would say the cleaner is the one role that I use the least and I'm not as big a fan of, but it's still pretty interesting, and I'll probably use it more when I want more variety in the game before like the inevitable expansion comes out, I'm sure. So I really enjoy all these different back and forths. I mean, it can be a tough thing to get into for people, but it is so rewarding, and it's really like no other party game that I've played. If you've got the right group of people, I urge you to try it when it's released, because it's so interesting and deep and thematic, and it's definitely going into my regular queue of party games and also filler games, because it is so fast and easy to play with a lot of people. That is Mafia de Cuba from Asmodee and Meme Games. I wish I could get their name right, because they deserve some praise. This is an excellent game. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.